Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to day 4 of palette week. I hope that you guys are enjoying my palette inspired videos this week. Today's video is going to be me ranking all the eyeshadow palettes that I have purchased this year. This does not include palettes that have come into my collection through BoxyCharm, only palettes that I have purchased and one that my husband purchased because he let my daughter ruin some of my makeup, so I deserved it. I have 7 palettes to rank with you guys today, and if you've missed any of my previous palette week videos, I will leave all 3 linked down below for you guys, so definitely check those out. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, I also hope you'll consider doing so before you go. I post videos every single Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. But without further ado, let's get into this ranking video. Alright you guys, I am going to start with my least favorite palette of the year and move my way up to my favorite palette that I have obtained this year. So starting with my least favorite, we have the Melt Smoke Sessions palette. I have talked kind of at length about how I feel about this palette, so I'm not going to go too in depth, but I knew when I purchased this palette that I knew it was not going to be like an everyday wearable palette. The problem that I have with this palette is I feel like the colors don't like mesh together as well as I want them to. Even some of the shimmers against one another are super, like, it's just a super stark contrast. So I was let down by that, as well as the 2 matte shades. They just like look like a black shadow in my opinion, like when I blend them out. So I don't love that. I feel like this is more of a palette that I would reach into for one shimmer shade rather than reaching in and creating a full look with this palette. Again, I knew it wasn't going to be the most wearable, but I had the higher expectations, and this was a pricey palette at $48. I will have all the palettes linked down below in case you guys are interested. I won't declutter this palette because I've been super into green shadows, and I also have mentioned this before, but I just think the marketing behind this palette, as well as just the like crossing the line a little bit, not crossing the line, but just pushing the boundaries a little bit. I love that they went with like a marijuana themed palette. I just think marketing genius in my opinion. But this is my least favorite palette that I have purchased thus far this year. Okay, next is the palette that I didn't purchase for myself. My husband purchased this for me, and I don't dislike this palette, but I was a little let down by this palette. By the way, filming day is also laundry day, so if you can hear some like clinking in the background, it's the dryer. But this is the Urban Decay Naked Reloaded palette. I was super excited about this, and I know that it had very mixed reviews, but I hadn't purchased a Naked palette since my Naked 2, which I owned in college. I may have owned 2 Naked 2s. I may have like used up a lot of the shades in my Naked 2, like my first one, and purchased a second one, but I hadn't had a Naked palette or used a Naked palette literally in like 5, 6, 7 years. So I was excited for this because I had heard some good things. Now, if I'm looking for just an easy everyday neutral look, like I can definitely get that from this palette. But there are definitely some dud shades in this palette. For example, this Angel Fire shade right here is really chunky, so no me gusta on that. Even like as an inner corner highlight, like I literally am fearful that I'm going to get glitter in my eye. Also, this Bribe shade on the end, so as you can tell, some of the shades are like a little bit bigger, the pan sizes are bigger, and then some are skinnier. This Bribe shade is like a satin shade, so I mean you can use it as a brow bone highlight and inner corner highlight, but it's definitely not a lid setting shade. And I've also realized I don't really care for lid setting shades in my palettes. Like I'd rather get a more fun color and just use like a powder to set my lid. So I wish that this shade wasn't in this palette. There are definitely some shades that I really do enjoy. I love Reputation, I love Burn, and I can create a nice look with this palette, but I just feel like I had a little bit higher expectations for this guy, so that is why this is falling at number 6. Next up, we have this 6-pan eyeshadow palette from Pat McGrath. This came in a little set. This is what it looks like, and I paid $48 for the set. Really expensive. We all know that Pat McGrath is expensive, and again, a little bit let down by this. Again, I knew I was just purchasing a 6-pan palette, but when I swatched the shimmers, that's what really like pushed me to purchase this. And on the eyes, they're just fine. Like they're fine, they're pretty, they're foiled, but I feel like Pat McGrath is just known for such unique shimmer shades, and that's not really what you're getting in here. You're definitely getting a foiled shimmer, don't get me wrong, and they are beautiful, but they're not super unique where they're like a duochrome or like a multi-chrome shade. It's just a foiled shimmer. Also, you are pretty limited by what you're given in this palette. Like, I feel like I can't even create necessarily a full look with this palette because this deep brown shade is like so deep. I'd like a lighter transition. And then, I mean, you do have a black shade, which I rarely reach into black. You can create a nice sultry smoky eye with this palette. It's obviously very nice, small, and compact, so easy to travel with, but like I could just take or leave this palette. So definitely not something I would say like you need to run out and get. Like I would set the $48 aside and either spend it on another palette or like save it up and then maybe buy like one of the 10-pan Pat McGrath eyeshadow palettes in the future, because I don't have one, but I want one so bad. They're so pretty and they swatch so beautifully. I've swatched a few in store, but anyway, this one is my number 5. Okay, quick coffee break. Do you guys like this new mug? I purchased this from Target. I obviously live in Minnesota, and I just love this. I think it is so cute. My number 3 and 4 are basically a tie, and I'll give my reasoning for why I put this palette at number 4 and then the next one at number 3. But this is the Hooda Neon palette, and I really do like this palette, you guys. I was a little nervous when purchasing this just because I was not the most impressed with the Hooda Gemstone line. Like the Amethyst palette I just talked about yesterday is one of my 10 least favorite palettes in my collection. I also own the Emerald palette and it's not my favorite. I love the original 6 Hooda palettes, so I was like, like what am I going to be getting with this? Plus it's a neon palette and I'm more of a neutral loving type of gal, so this was way outside my comfort zone. But for fun neon summer looks, I am so happy with this palette. I think it is beautiful. I was a little annoyed with the glitter here, the glitter shade, but then I realized it's literally basically a chunky glitter in the... It's not meant to be a shimmer is what I'm trying to say. It's meant to be a glitter. So once I kind of came to terms with that and used different ways to apply it, I do appreciate the glitters in here as well. I think for neon, like the shadows perform, the matte shadows perform really, really well. I recently posted a couple of videos where I was wearing a neon look using this palette and I got so much positive feedback, which I was so excited about because, again, very outside my comfort zone. I'm not super comfortable with color and my like eyeshadow ability, so I was so excited that you guys loved the look that I created. And I'm really happy with this palette overall. The only reason I'm ranking this at number 4 is because it's obviously not like an everyday palette, and this is going to be more of like a spring summertime palette. I'm definitely not going to be reaching into my neon palette for the winter time, but I am really happy that I picked this up. Coming in at number 3 is the ABH Riviera palette, and the reason that I'm ranking this above the Hooda Neon palette is because I can create more wearable everyday looks with this palette. That being said, with this ranked at number 3, one thing I do want to mention is I'm not like uber excited about this either. Like this is something that like I truly could kind of take or leave within my collection. And the reason being is just because it's not the easiest palette. Like when I look at this, I don't necessarily know what looks I'm going to be creating, and it's definitely not one of my favorite, like definitely not a favorite ABH palette. I don't know, I just was really excited for this palette, bought into the hype. I think part of that was because I think this was released around March and we were in like the heart of winter. We had gone through like the polar vortex up here in Minnesota, as I know many states went through. And so when this released, I was just like super excited about something that felt like super spring. I'm not gonna lie, the nautical packaging also really got me, but it's just like an okay palette. The formula is very consistent with the ABH formula, but definitely just not my favorite ABH palette. Not the most wearable. I mean, you can create wearable neutral looks, you can create fun looks, but it's just meh. Like I probably wouldn't say go purchase this. I don't even know if this is still available, but I'd recommend other palettes before recommending this to you guys. Coming in at number 2 is a palette that I really, really do like, and it is the Natasha Nona Sunrise palette. I knew instantly when I saw the teaser picture of this that I was going to be getting this palette. this is what it looks like. I just really do love this palette. I love that it is $65 as opposed to her $129. I do know her shadow formula goes bad quicker than other shadow formulas too, so having smaller pan sizes wasn't something that bothered me. I think that this is stunning. I love some of the shimmers in here. Natasha Nona shimmers are just, I love them so much. And I love that you can create everyday wearable looks with this palette as well. It's just a really, really nice palette. Again, like the shimmers just, I just love Natasha Nona shimmers. If you've been thinking about this palette, I would say that if you like warm tones like this, this is going to be a good one for you. I also think that this is going to be a fun one even to reach for in the fall. Even though it's like sunrise, it doesn't have to be like the summertime palette. You can definitely create fall looks with this, with some of these like deeper oranges down at the bottom. Again, you can create everyday wearable looks, and the shimmers here are really beautiful neutrals. So really happy with this purchase, and this one would be number 2. So coming in at number 1 is a palette that it wasn't on my radar. I didn't think I was going to purchase this. Then I had Ulta points and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to go for it. And it's the Tarte Unleashed palette. And you guys, I love this palette. I really am blown away by this. This is what it looks like. So what I love is that Tarte kind of is listening to consumers in that they added a little bit more color than they normally do with some of these blues. Now overall, it still really is just a neutral palette, but what I love is that you have your warm tones, but then you also have this mauve row as well, and I love the mauve row, you guys. It is so stunning and so beautiful. And these 2 orange shades are also incredible. They blend out so easily, but they're so richly pigmented. Beautiful, beautiful looks. I've created some looks that I've been so happy with. The only shade, and I mentioned this before, that I'm not super impressed with is this shade Hawkward right here. I was really excited for this because it's like a green gold blue shade, which I've been so into, like anything green. There it is swatched right there, but it's just a little, it's not as high impact as I was wanting it to be, and I've tried it quite a few different ways and I just can't get it to work exactly how I want to. So that's the only shade that's a bit of a bummer for me. Other than that, this is just a phenomenal palette. I think that this would be good for just about anyone, especially if you mostly like neutrals but you want to play around with color on the weekends or something. I think this is a really nice palette. $39. I know the set comes with a little trial size of their Big Ego mascara as well, which wasn't my favorite, but I do think $39 is a pretty fair price for this. Really glad that I ended up picking this up, and this is my number 1 palette purchase of 2019 so far. Alright you guys, after that, that concludes today's palette video, ranking my palettes that I have picked up in 2019. Let me know what your favorite palette that you picked up this year is down in the comments below. I would love to hear from you guys. Other than that, thank you so much for sticking around to watch, and I will catch you in tomorrow's video. Bye!